And what you need to understand from a member's perspective is that the pastor is not a superhuman being. The pastor does have feelings, and it does take a toll on us as pastors. What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. Pastor Ryan Dormans here, and once again I am excited to share another video with you. We are talking about pastors in the Seventh-day Adventist Church and what every member should know about their pastor. But before we go any further, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. I just want to thank all 636 of you who have already subscribed to the channel. I appreciate you. But if you're not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get straight into the topic. We are looking at what every member should know about their pastor. This is not only restricted to the Adventist Church, but this can be applied to all denominations who call their ministers pastors. Before we go on, let me put you into perspective concerning the actual membership stats of the Adventist Church. Currently, we are sitting at close to 23 million members worldwide. And active ordained ministers, both full-time and part-time, as of December 31st, 2020, is 20,924. Obviously, that number is larger by now, but if you work on an average of how many members are there to each pastor, you have over 1,000 members to each pastor. That is just to give you an idea of how strenuous a pastor's work can be in the Adventist Church. Some churches worldwide have several pastors per congregation, but here in South Africa, each pastor is carrying the load of several churches, and it's very difficult for a pastor to divide himself amongst these churches. So what qualifies a person to become a pastor, especially in the Adventist Church? You will hear quite often a pastor talking about his calling. As we read in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 11, you can see that the Lord is the one who appoints pastors. And so each pastor should have received a calling by the Lord to go into full-time ministry. So what do you do after you receive a calling? In the Adventist Church, in order to become a pastor, you need to undergo a theological degree or theological studies. You can do a bachelor's degree in theology, and thereafter you can do a postgrad in theology and move into your master's and your PhD. In some parts of the world, you are required to have a master's degree in order to start work as a pastoral intern. Here in South Africa, as it stands, you need a bachelor's degree to start work. However, I believe that is going to change because all pastors should have minimum a master's degree or a master's in divinity. But I stand to be corrected on that one. However, we need to understand that in order to become a pastor in the Adventist Church, you need to undergo theological training and studies as well. This is actually a benefit in the Adventist Church because you have a pastor who is qualified in understanding and preaching the Bible and also in other aspects of theological ministry. So once you complete your studies and once you, God willing, gain employment in the Adventist Church as a pastor, because some pastors are not taken into employment immediately after their studies, but if you are privileged to get employed as a pastor, you are then employed as a pastoral intern for a period of time. As a pastoral intern, you will have a supervisor who oversees you, who evaluates you from time to time. And once you complete your pastoral internship, you will then undergo evaluation in order to be ordained as a pastor in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Ordination is basically the church putting its stamp of approval on you and acknowledging your calling as you received it from the Lord. Being an ordained pastor in the Adventist Church comes with some privileges. You can conduct the communion service, you can conduct baptisms, and if you like, you can receive your marriage license and conduct weddings in the church as well. So let's talk about the actual work of the pastor. Somebody said that a pastor is the jack of all trades, but the master of none. One of my lecturers at Halberg College used to say that we are there for the members when they hatch, when they match, and when they dispatch. When children are born, we are there to dedicate them to the Lord. When people get married, we are there to join them in holy matrimony. And unfortunately, when people die, we are there to lay them to rest as well. One of the most challenging times for a pastor is conducting a funeral. Sometimes a pastor will conduct more funerals than actual church services, and I'm speaking from experience with this one. And over time, it actually takes a toll on the pastor's mental and spiritual capacity. It may be a challenging time for the members who are laying their loved one to rest, but it also takes a toll on the pastor as well. And what you need to understand from a member's perspective is that the pastor is not a superhuman being. The pastor does have feelings, and it does take a toll on us as pastors. One of my favorite joys in the pastoral ministry is conducting baptisms. It's a wonderful privilege to lead people to the Lord Jesus Christ and also to solidify their relationship with the Lord through baptism. Now let's look at some of the expectations that members have of their pastors. The pastor is expected to be at every event, at every function that the church has. Yes, I agree. It's important for the pastor to be present at certain functions. But like I said, here in South Africa, the pastor has more than one church in his district. And sometimes it's difficult for a pastor to be present at every function. Another high expectation that members have of pastors is the pastoral family. The pastor's wife is expected to be a certain way, to behave a certain way, to dress a certain way. And those expectations are also placed upon the children as well. That's why a lot of pastors' kids struggle as they grow up in the Adventist church because of the high expectations that members have on the children. But what I need you to understand in this video is that the pastor's family is human as well. The children will make mistakes, the wife will make mistakes, and the pastor will make mistakes as well. And as a church member, we need to understand that the pastor is not perfect and he's not without fault, especially the pastoral family. So having these high expectations on the pastoral family can also add pressure to the pastor's work as he tries to minister in your church. Some of the funny moments that I have experienced as a pastor is that you are expected to pray at every event. Trust me, whether you're at a lunch or at a supper or visiting someone's home, wherever you may be, because you are the pastor, you are expected to pray. Even when I'm with family, when it's time to pray, everybody looks at me. That's just one of the funny moments that I experience as a pastor. Because if you are a pastor and you're at a function or an event, rest assured they're probably going to ask you to pray or say something about the Bible. Let's talk about the joys that we experience as pastors. Like I mentioned, baptism is my main one. Leading someone to baptism is one of the most important things a pastor can do. And it's one of the greatest joys that a pastor can officiate in. Another joy that I experience as being a pastor, and many other pastors as well, is meeting new people. Meeting people for the first time is a wonderful experience. People are open to listen to what you have to say, and it's one of the joys that I feel of pastoral ministry. Another joy that I experience is sharing the gospel. It's a wonderful experience when you meet somebody and you have the opportunity of sharing the gospel with them. In as much as your pastor may experience a lot of joys, there are some challenges that your pastor will experience. Here are some of them that you need to know. The first one is your pastor does not have enough time. Like I mentioned, the Adventist church has more members than actual pastors. And the members outweigh the pastors by a large amount of people. So it's very difficult for your pastor to spend enough time with all the members all the time. A second challenge that we can consider is too much pressure. Your pastor will receive pressure from the church. He'll receive pressure from the board. He'll receive pressure from the employing organization as well. So there's a lot of pressure from all sides. He will also receive pressure from family in his home as well. So you need to understand that the pastor is under an enormous amount of pressure. I've heard some members say that pastors never retire, pastors shouldn't go on leave, etc. But trust me, your pastor is under an enormous amount of pressure and he does need to come aside and rest a while. Another challenge is the high expectations. Like I mentioned earlier, members do have high expectations of their pastors. And like I mentioned to a lot of people, if you have high expectations, it often leads to great disappointments. And trust me, your pastor is going to let you down at some point in his ministry in your church. So please do not have high expectations of your pastor. Another challenge that pastors experience are challenging members. Most members in the Adventist church are great to deal with. However, there are some members who do pose a challenge to the pastor. Instead of working with the pastor, this member will work against the pastor and cause problems for the pastor in the church. It's important that when you are working with the pastor, that you work together and pray for your pastor. Do not be a challenging member. If your pastor is going in the wrong direction, there are ways to address those issues. So that was just some of the challenges. There may be more, but I want us to focus on the joys and the good news of being a pastor and what you as a church member should know concerning your pastor. So what do we do now? Once you know all this information and the joys and challenges of being a pastor and what your pastor goes through on a daily basis, what should you do for your pastor? Here are 5 things you can do for your pastor. Number 1, pray for your pastor. Pray for your pastor and also let him know that you're praying for him. It helps us a lot in our ministry. Sometimes in our ministry, we feel that we are alone and that nobody cares about us. So if you let your pastor know that you're praying for him, it's a blessing to your pastor. Point number 2, support your pastor. Don't work against your pastor. He is trying his utmost best, God willing, to do the best for you and for your church. So offer your support, offer your help. And point number 3, lighten the load of your pastor. Most pastors are carrying a heavy load. And if you care for your pastor and want him to thrive in your church, then offer your help and support in his ministry. Point number 4, lower your expectations. I do agree that pastors need to meet a certain requirement and certain criteria in the churches. However, some members have high expectations of their pastor, which the pastor will not ever meet. So in order for your pastor to thrive in his ministry in your local congregation, lower your expectations of the pastor, especially of his family. And the final point here, show your appreciation to your pastor. Don't just wait for Pastoral Appreciation Day in October to show your appreciation, but show your appreciation by sending a text message or phoning your pastor and checking up on him or her. I hope you found this video informative concerning what every member should know about their pastor. I hope it sheds more light into the life and work of a pastor and the challenges and joys that we faced as we minister to you as church members. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. And once again, we all know somebody who needs to know this information. Share this video with as much people as you can. God bless you, and I hope to see you again on the next video.